Olivia Parker clutched the notice in trembling hands, the cruel words swimming before her tear-filled eyes. Tenant eviction property, seized for unpaid debts. The small cabin that had been her sanctuary since her father's passing 3 months ago would no longer be hers by sunset. In Whispering Creek, Colorado, 1876, a woman alone had few options and fewer friends. "You'll fetch a fair price up at McGregor's," Mrs. Wilkes said, her thin lips curving into what might have been meant as a smile, but looked more like a grimace. The boarding house proprietress stood in Olivia's doorway, appraising her like livestock. Pretty enough, despite that unfortunate hair. Some men don't mind redheads, though they're said to be difficult. Olivia's chin lifted despite the hollowness in her stomach. "I'm not for sale, Mrs. Wilkes." "Nonsense. Every woman has her price when starvation comes calling." The older woman sniffed. "Your father left you with nothing but debts, and that wild spirit. One will get you killed, the other might keep you alive if you're sensible." The door closed with a decisive click, leaving Olivia alone with her meager possessions: a trunk of clothes, her mother's silver hairbrush, her father's pocket watch, and the unfinished landscape painting her father had started before the consumption took him. At 22, she had never imagined this would be her fate. Outside, the spring sun warmed Whispering Creek, a town that had sprung up when silver was discovered in the nearby mountains. Now it thrived on cattle, the railroad, and the steady stream of hopefuls heading west. The main street bustled with activity: merchants hawking wares, cowboys fresh from the trail spending their pay, and ladies in fine dresses window shopping. None spared a glance for the red-haired woman carrying her trunk toward the general store, where a weathered sign announced, "Help wanted, inquire within." Mr. Thompson, the store owner, barely looked up from his ledger when she entered. "Not hiring females," he said, scratching figures with his pen. "My father taught me figures, sir. I can take inventory, handle accounts, said I'm not hiring females." Customers don't trust a woman with their money. He finally raised his eyes, recognition dawning. "You're Parker's girl. Sorry about your pa, but you'd best try the saloon or the laundry. Those take your kind." "My kind." The words stung as Olivia retreated to the street. She'd been born in this town, raised proper by loving parents. Now, with her father gone, she'd become that kind: unwanted, unwelcome. Her mother had warned her how quickly the world changed for a woman alone. The town's 3 restaurants refused her, as did the hotel and the milliner's shop. By mid-afternoon, her options had narrowed to the laundry, where Chinese workers toiled in steam-filled rooms for pennies a day, or McGregor's saloon, where painted women served more than just drinks. Desperation drove her toward the laundry when the sound of pounding hooves caught her attention. A group of riders thundered into town, trail dust coating their denim and leather. Cattle drivers, bringing herds north from Texas. The leader, a tall man with a shock of dark hair beneath his hat, reined in sharply, his keen eyes sweeping the street as his men dispersed toward the saloon. "Where's Doc Wilson's place?" he called out to no one in particular. Olivia found herself answering. "3 doors down, sir, the white house with blue shutters." The man turned, taking in Olivia and her trunk with a single assessing glance. For an instant, their eyes met hers, green as spring grass, his the blue of a winter sky. Something passed between them, quick as lightning, before he touched his hat brim in acknowledgement. "Obliged, miss." He dismounted in one fluid motion, revealing a lithe strength despite his trail-worn appearance. "Zane Kincaid," he introduced himself, extending a gloved hand. "Trail boss for the Rocking M. Olivia Parker." She took his hand briefly, conscious of the impropriety but too weary to care about social niceties. "You waiting on someone, Miss Parker?" His gaze flicked to her trunk. "No." Pride made her straighten her shoulders. "I'm seeking employment." His expression revealed nothing, but his eyes took in every detail: the quality of her dress, now worn at the hems, the proud tilt of her chin, the determined set of her mouth. "What sort of employment?" "The respectable sort, Mr. Kincaid, though this town seems disinclined to offer it." A faint smile touched his lips. "Honest, at least." He glanced down the street toward the doctor's house. "My trail cook took a fall yesterday. Broke his leg bad. We've got 3 weeks of driving ahead to reach Wyoming." He paused, studying her. "You cook?" "Yes. For 20 hungry men. I can learn." The words came out before she could consider them fully. He arched an eyebrow. It's hard work. Dangerous, sometimes. No place for a woman. Olivia finished. Mr. Kincaid, I've spent my life in this town, and today I've learned it has no place for me either. I'm capable, quick to learn, and she swallowed hard. I have nowhere else to go. Something in his expression shifted. Wait here. He strode toward the doctor's house, leaving Olivia with her trunk and a wild, desperate hope. 10 minutes later, he returned. Cookies laid up for at least 6 weeks. Doc's keeping him here. He studied her again, as if measuring her resolve. $20 a month, plus room and board such as it is. You'll sleep in the chuck wagon, cook 3 meals daily, and keep up with supplies. We leave at dawn. I accept. You might want to think on it, Miss Parker. The trail's no place for, I've thought, Mr. Kincaid. I accept. His lips twitched. Stubborn. That might serve you well. He lifted her trunk effortlessly. Come on, then. We need supplies if you're feeding my crew tomorrow. As they walked toward the general store, whispers followed them. Olivia heard them clearly. Shameless hussy. Poor Randall Parker, rolling in his grave. That Kincaid fellow, taking advantage. Never wanted her kind here anyway. Zane Kincaid heard them too. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing until they reached the store. There, he set down her trunk and fixed Mr. Thompson with a steely gaze. My outfit needs supplies. Full restock, plus whatever Miss Parker requires for cooking. We'll pay fair price, cash money. His voice carried throughout the store. Miss Parker is the Rocking M's new trail cook, and she'll be treated with respect while we're in town. Mr. Thompson's eyes widened, darting between Zane and Olivia. Of course, Mr. Kincaid. Whatever you need. For the first time that day, Olivia felt the weight on her shoulders lighten. As they gathered supplies, flour, beans, coffee, salt pork, and a dozen other necessities, she caught Zane watching her with curious eyes. Why? She asked quietly. Why help me? He considered this for a moment. Man believes in second chances, I suppose. Then, with a hint of that smile again, besides, you've got the look of someone who can handle herself in a tough spot. And we've got plenty of those ahead. By sunset, Olivia Parker had left Whispering Creek behind, perched on the seat of a chuck wagon bound for Wyoming territory. Behind her, the town that had never truly wanted her faded into the gathering darkness. Ahead, unknown dangers and challenges awaited. Beside her, a man whose kindness had offered her a chance when no one else would. She had no illusions about the difficulty of what lay ahead, but as the stars began to appear in the vast sky above, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Dawn broke over the prairie in streaks of pink and gold. Olivia had been awake for over an hour, struggling with the temperamental cook stove and the unfamiliar cast iron pans. Cookie Walter Jenkins, by proper name, had left meticulous instructions in a grease-stained notebook, but theory and practice were worlds apart. Coffee ready yet? A sleepy-eyed cowboy approached, hat in hand. Almost. Olivia wiped perspiration from her brow despite the morning chill. Biscuits in 5 minutes. The man eyed her doubtfully, but nodded and retreated to where others were saddling horses and preparing for the day's drive. She heard the murmurs, felt the skeptical glances, but focused on her task. The fire was too hot, the biscuits browning unevenly. The coffee boiled over twice before she managed to get it right. By the time she called, "Come and get it," her confidence was as fragile as an eggshell. The cowboys approached warily, taking plates with muttered thanks. She watched their faces as they tasted her food, searching for approval or disgust. Biscuits could stop a bullet, someone muttered. Coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe, added another. Olivia's cheeks burned, but she kept serving until the last man had been fed. Only then did she notice Zane watching from the edge of camp. He approached, took a plate, and tried a biscuit without comment. Better than my first attempt at camp cooking, he said finally. Tomorrow will be better. It wasn't exactly praise, but the simple acknowledgement of her efforts steadied her. Yes, it will. After breakfast, while the men moved the herd, Olivia tackled cleanup and began preparations for the noon meal. Cookie's notebook became her Bible, its stained pages revealing secrets of trail cooking. By midday, her stew was passable, and by evening, the cornbread accompanying the beans was actually edible. Days stretched into a rhythm. Up before dawn, cook, clean, travel while the herd moved, set up for noon break. Cook again, travel more, make camp, prepare dinner, clean, fall into exhausted sleep. Her hands blistered, then calloused. Her skin darkened under the relentless sun despite the bonnet she wore. But each day, the food improved incrementally, and the sideways glances from the cowboys became less frequent. A week into the drive, the wrangler's horse stepped in a prairie dog hole, throwing its rider. Olivia was the closest, and without thinking, she abandoned the chuck wagon and ran to the fallen man. Blood poured from a gash on his forehead where he'd struck a rock. "Stay still, Mr. Dawson," she instructed, tearing a strip from her petticoat to staunch the bleeding. "Lucas, bring my medical kit from the wagon." The young wrangler blinked up at her, dazed but conscious. "Didn't know we had an angel on this drive," he slurred. She cleaned and bandaged his wound, remembered her father's instructions for checking for broken bones, and helped the men fashion a travois to carry Dawson when it became clear he couldn't ride. That evening, as she served stew that for once wasn't scorched, the mood around the campfire had shifted. Dawson, his head bandaged but his spirit intact, raised his tin cup. "To Miss Parker," he said, "prettiest trail cook and finest field nurse this side of the Mississippi." The men cheered, and Olivia felt a warmth that had nothing to do with the campfire. Later, as she cleaned up, Zane approached her wagon. "That was good work today," he said. "Where'd you learn doctoring?" "My father taught me. He believed women should be self-sufficient." She scrubbed a pot vigorously. "He would have appreciated the irony of that, considering where I've ended up." "Where you've ended up is exactly where you're needed," Zane replied. Not many would have handled today with such calm. In the firelight, his features were softer, the hard lines of his face relaxed. For the first time, Olivia noticed a small scar near his left eyebrow, the way his eyes crinkled when he spoke. He was younger than she'd initially thought, perhaps 30. "Thank you for giving me this chance," she said quietly. "You've earned your keep." He hesitated, then added, "The men were skeptical at first. Women on cattle drives are considered bad luck. And now," his mouth quirked in that half-smile, "now they're afraid if they say so, you'll serve them those first-day biscuits again as punishment." The unexpected joke startled a laugh from her. A fate worse than death, certainly. For a moment, they shared the simple pleasure of laughter under the vast prairie sky. Then Zane cleared his throat and stepped back. "We'll reach the Red River crossing tomorrow. It can be tricky this time of year. Best get some rest." As he walked away, Olivia found herself watching the tall, straight-backed figure until he disappeared into the darkness. Something had shifted between them, something she wasn't ready to examine too closely. The Red River lived up to its reputation. Swollen with spring rains, its muddy waters churned angrily. The men worked tirelessly to move the herd across, with Zane and his segundo, Miguel Rodriguez, directing operations from opposite banks. Olivia watched anxiously from the chuck wagon as cowboys urged reluctant cattle into the water. The crossing was going smoothly until a flash of lightning spooked the herd. Several steers broke from the main group, heading downriver where the current ran stronger. Two cowboys pursued them, including young Lucas, barely 18 and on his first drive. What happened next unfolded in horrifying slow motion. Lucas's horse stumbled in the shallows, pitching the boy into the swift current. His panicked cry cut through the air as the river swept him away. Without conscious thought, Olivia kicked off her boots and plunged into the water. Her father had taught her to swim in the creek near their home, and though the river's current was far stronger, instinct and determination propelled her forward. She spotted Lucas's flailing arms and struck out toward him. "Hold on," she shouted, fighting the current. "Lucas!" The boy was panicking, thrashing wildly as water filled his mouth. Olivia reached him just as he began to go under. "Stop fighting," she commanded, gripping him from behind as her father had taught her. "Let me help you." Together, they battled the current, Olivia kicking steadily toward the shore where men were running along the bank. Finally, hands reached for them, pulling them from the river's grip. Coughing and sputtering, Olivia collapsed on the muddy bank, Lucas beside her, both gasping for air. When she could finally focus, Zane was kneeling beside her, his face ashen. "Of all the fool, reckless," he broke off, his voice rough. "You could have drowned. But I didn't." She coughed up more water. Neither did Lucas. Zane helped her sit up, his hands gentle despite his harsh words. Around them, The cowboys stared in open-mouthed astonishment. Never seen anything like it, Dawson murmured. She went in after him without hesitation. Swims like a fish, another added with newfound respect. Miguel brought a blanket, wrapping it around her shoulders. Brave woman, he said softly. Brave but maybe a little loca, no? Zane stood abruptly. Get back to work. Those cattle won't cross themselves. To Olivia, he added, rest in the wagon. Miguel's wife can handle dinner tonight. Miguel's wife. Olivia repeated, confused. Elena travels with us, though she usually stays with their children in the remuda. She'll help tonight. His expression was unreadable. You've done enough for one day. It wasn't until evening, when she'd changed into dry clothes and sat wrapped in blankets by the fire, that Olivia understood the shift in the camp's atmosphere. The cowboys no longer looked through her as if she were just another piece of equipment. They nodded respectfully, offered small kindnesses, thanked her earnestly for the meals Elena had prepared under her guidance. Lucas approached her shyly, his young face solemn. Miss Parker, I don't know how to thank you. He twisted his hat in his hands. Pa always said I was a strong swimmer, but when I hit that water. Fear is a powerful force, she said gently. Even the strongest swimmer can panic. You didn't. I was too focused on reaching you to be afraid. It was true, she realized. In that moment, nothing had mattered except saving the boy. Well, I owe you my life. He ducked his head, and I won't forget it. After Lucas left, Zane settled beside her on the log. For a while, they sat in companionable silence, watching the fires dance. You continue to surprise me, Miss Parker, he finally said. Olivia, she corrected. After today, I think formality seems excessive. He nodded. Olivia. Her name sounded different in his mouth, warmer somehow. What you did today was extraordinary. It was necessary. That's what makes it extraordinary. He studied her in the firelight. Most people run from danger. You ran toward it. She considered this. My father always said courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it. I was terrified, but I couldn't stand by and watch Lucas drown. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. Sadness washed over her. He taught me everything he would have taught a son: figures, shooting, swimming, survival. My mother thought it improper, but he insisted. The world is changing, he'd say, and Olivia must be ready for it. He'd be proud of you today. Tears pricked her eyes, but she blinked them away. I hope so. She shifted the blanket around her shoulders. What about your family? Do you have one waiting somewhere? A shadow crossed his face. Not anymore. My parents had a small ranch in Texas. Raided during the war. My sister and I were the only survivors. I'm sorry, she said softly. It was a long time ago. Charlotte married a shopkeeper in San Antonio. They have 3 children now. A small smile touched his lips. She writes regularly, demanding I settle down and give her nieces and nephews cousins to play with. The casual mention of marriage sent an unexpected flutter through Olivia's chest. She quickly tamped it down. And will you? Settle down, I mean. He looked out at the vast darkness beyond their fire. Someday, maybe, when I find the right woman in the right place. His voice grew distant. The Rockingham is a good outfit, but the land belongs to McIntosh. I've been saving to buy my own spread. He glanced at her. What about you? What happens after Wyoming? The question caught her off guard. She hadn't thought beyond surviving the cattle drive. I don't know. Find work, I suppose. Save enough to. To what? The dreams she'd once harbored seemed childish now. To, he prompted. To be independent. Self-sufficient, as my father wanted. She twisted a loose thread on the blanket. Perhaps open a small bakery someday. I was always good with pastry, despite evidence to the contrary on my first morning. He chuckled. Those biscuits were memorable. Infamously so. Their laughter mingled in the night air, and something warm bloomed in Olivia's chest. For the first time since her father's death, she felt a sense of belonging. Not to a place, but to this moment, these people, this unexpected journey. Zane rose, reluctance evident in his movements. Dawn comes early. You should rest. Zane, she called as he turned to leave. When he looked back, she said simply, thank you. For everything. His expression softened. Sleep well, Olivia. That night, she dreamt not of drowning but of open skies and endless possibilities, and of blue eyes that truly saw her when the rest of the world had looked away. The days following the river crossing took on a different quality. The cattle drive continued its slow progress north, but for Olivia, everything had changed. The cowboys no longer questioned her presence. Instead, they treated her with a respect that bordered on reverence. Young Lucas followed her like a devoted puppy. Even the crusty old wrangler, Silas, who had initially predicted disaster at having a woman on the drive, now tipped his hat when she served his meals. But it was the change in her relationship with Zane that affected her most deeply. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. During the day, he rode alongside the chuck wagon when he could, sharing stories of previous drives, listening attentively to her memories of life before her father's death. In the evenings, he often lingered by the fire after the other men had turned in, discussing books they'd read, dreams they harbored. Olivia learned that beneath his commanding exterior lay a thoughtful man with a dry wit and surprising gentleness. She discovered his passion for astronomy. He knew all the constellations and taught her to find her way by the stars. He spoke of his ambitions to establish a horse breeding operation one day, focusing on quarter horses with both speed and stamina. In turn, she shared her love of painting, inherited from her mother, and her father's teachings about medicinal plants. When they passed wild herbs she recognized, she gathered them to supplement their supplies, showing Zane which could ease stomach ailments or reduce fever. 2 weeks into the drive, they encountered a small band of Comanche. Tension rippled through the outfit as warriors approached on horseback, but Zane rode out to meet them, speaking in halting phrases of their language. To everyone's relief, the encounter ended peacefully with an exchange of tobacco and coffee for fresh meat. "You speak Comanche," Olivia remarked later as they set up camp. Zane nodded. "Enough to avoid trouble, mostly. My father traded with them before the war. He believed understanding was better than fear." "Another trait you inherited from your father," she observed. His eyes met hers. Along with his tendency to recognize value where others see only difference. The words hung between them, laden with meaning neither was ready to fully acknowledge. That night, as they sat by the fire, the distance between them on the shared log seemed to shrink imperceptibly. Their idyll was shattered 3 days later when they encountered another cattle outfit moving south. The groups camped near each other for the night, and Olivia felt the weight of curious stares from the other outfit's cowboys. Their trail boss, a weathered man named Harlan Reeves, joined them for dinner. "Kincaid," he greeted, eyeing Olivia with undisguised interest. "Unusual choice of cook you've got." "Miss Parker is the finest trail cook I've had," Zane replied evenly, "and a valuable member of this outfit." Reeves snorted. "If you say so. Just surprised McIntosh allows it. He's usually traditional about such things." "Mr. McIntosh values results," Zane said, his voice cooling. "And Miss Parker delivers those." The exchange set a tone of tension that permeated the evening. After dinner, Olivia retreated to her wagon to escape the scrutiny, but solitude eluded her when one of Reeves's men approached, swaggering with liquid courage. "Evening, Red," he drawled, blocking her path. "Thought maybe you'd like some company tonight." "No, thank you," Olivia replied firmly. "Please step aside." The man moved closer instead. "Come on now, no need to be unfriendly. Pretty thing like you must get lonely out here with all these men." I said no. Olivia's hand slipped into her pocket, gripping the small knife she carried. "Heard you was unwanted back in town," he persisted, his alcohol-laced breath hot on her face. "But I want you plenty, just for tonight." The lady said no. Zane's voice cut through the darkness like a whip. He materialized behind the man, his expression glacial. "Return to your own camp, Barnes." "Now." Barnes turned, sizing up Zane with bleary eyes. "Didn't realize you'd claimed her, Kincaid." "Sharing is," he never finished the sentence. Zane's fist connected with his jaw, sending him sprawling in the dirt. Barnes scrambled to his feet, hand going to his holster, but Zane was faster, his revolver appearing as if by magic. "Don't," Zane warned, voice deadly quiet. "Walk away, and we'll forget this happened." For a tense moment, Barnes wavered. Then, muttering curses, he stumbled back toward his own camp. Zane holstered his weapon and turned to Olivia. "Are you all right?" She nodded, though her hands trembled. "Yes, thank you." He stepped closer, concern evident in his eyes. I should have anticipated this. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm well acquainted with men like Barnes. You shouldn't have to be. His voice roughened with emotion. No one should speak to you that way or treat you as less than what you are. And what am I, Zane? The question slipped out before she could reconsider. In the silver moonlight, his expression softened. You're extraordinary, Olivia Parker. Brave, intelligent, kind. He hesitated, then added more softly, beautiful. The word hung between them like a tangible thing. Olivia's breath caught as Zane moved closer, his hand rising to touch her cheek with a gentleness that made her heart ache. I didn't plan this, he murmured. Didn't expect to find someone like you out here. Someone unwanted? She whispered, the old hurt surfacing. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Someone I want more than my next breath. The kiss, when it came, was tentative at first, a question more than a demand. Olivia answered by leaning into him, her hands finding the solid warmth of his chest. The world narrowed to this moment, this man, this unexpected joy blooming in her heart. When they finally parted, both breathless, Zane rested his forehead against hers. I should go before I forget myself entirely. Zane. She couldn't form coherent thoughts, her mind spinning with new possibilities. We'll talk tomorrow, he promised, brushing one more gentle kiss across her lips. Get some rest. She watched him walk away, her fingers touching her lips in wonder. Sleep seemed impossible with her heart pounding and her thoughts racing, yet eventually exhaustion claimed her, bringing dreams filled with blue eyes and gentle hands. Morning arrived with an unwelcome surprise. Reeves's outfit had already moved on, but they'd left trouble in their wake. 6 head of cattle were missing, and signs suggested they'd been deliberately cut from the herd and driven off. Rustlers? Miguel asked as they examined the tracks. Zane's expression was thunderous. Reeves's outfit, I'd wager. Payback for last night. The decision was made quickly. Zane would take 3 men to track the stolen cattle, while Miguel continued leading the herd north. They'd rendezvous at Sweetwater Creek in 2 days. Be careful, Olivia said as Zane prepared to leave. The memory of their kiss lingered between them, unacknowledged in the day's crisis, but present in the way his eyes softened when they met hers. Always am. He checked his rifle, then lowered his voice. Olivia, about last night, go. She interrupted gently. Do what needs doing. We'll talk when you return. He nodded, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. 2 days. No more. But 2 days passed, then 3, with no sign of Zane and his men. The outfit made camp at Sweetwater Creek, anxiety growing with each passing hour. On the evening of the 4th day, Miguel made a decision. We must continue tomorrow. The cattle cannot stay here without proper grazing. We can't leave without them, Olivia protested. We will leave markers, señorita. Zane knows the trail. Miguel's eyes were kind but resolute. The herd must come first. You know this. She did know, but the thought of moving on without knowing Zane's fate tore at her heart. That night, she couldn't sleep, her mind conjuring horrifying scenarios. Had they encountered bandits? Been ambushed by the rustlers? Fallen victim to some accident in the rugged terrain? Just before dawn, when the sky was beginning to lighten, the sound of approaching horses jerked her from uneasy slumber. She emerged from her wagon to see 4 riders approaching slowly. Even in the dim light, she recognized Zane's broad-shouldered silhouette, and her heart leapt. But as they drew closer, her relief curdled into fear. 2 riders supported a third between them, and the 4th Zane hunched forward in his saddle. Water and bandages, she called, rushing forward as the men dismounted. Up close, she could see that Zane's shirt was soaked with blood, his face gray with pain. What happened? Ambush, he managed through gritted teeth. Not Reeves. Different outfit. They helped the injured men to the fire. The youngest cowboy, Hank, had taken a bullet to the shoulder but would recover. Zane's wound was more serious. A bullet had grazed his side, leaving a deep furrow that had bled profusely. Olivia worked swiftly, cleaning and bandaging the wounds, administering the herbal remedies she'd gathered along the trail. When she finally turned her attention to Zane, her professional demeanor nearly cracked at the sight of his bare torso, bloodied and bruised. You promised to be careful, she said softly as she bathed his wound. Despite his pain, his eyes crinkled. This is careful. You should see the other fellows. Did you recover the cattle? He nodded, and sent a message that the rocking M isn't to be trifled with. He winced as she applied pressure to stop the bleeding. Worth it. Foolish man, she scolded, but her touch remained gentle. This needs stitches. Then stitch it, Doc Parker. His attempt at humor couldn't mask the pain in his eyes. I trust your hands. Those hands trembled slightly as she prepared the needle and catgut, but steadied when the actual work began. Her father had taught her basic field medicine, including suturing wounds. Still, it was different when the patient was someone whose pain affected her so deeply. Zane remained silent throughout the procedure, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on her face as if drawing strength from her concentration. When she tied off the last stitch and began bandaging the wound, he finally spoke. You're remarkable, you know that. She smoothed the bandage, avoiding his gaze. Hardly, just doing what needs doing. His hand caught hers, stilling her movements. Olivia. When she met his eyes, he continued, I thought of you every moment I was away. When that bullet hit and I saw my own blood, all I could think was that I might not see you again. Emotion threatened to overwhelm her. Don't say such things. I have to. Life's too uncertain out here to leave important words unsaid. He held her gaze steadily despite his weakness. I know it's sudden. I know we've known each other mere weeks. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Zane, I'm falling in love with you, Olivia Parker. And if you'll give me the chance, I want to prove I'm worthy of your heart. The confession, so raw and honest, broke the last of her defenses. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she brought his hand to her lips. You already are, she whispered against his skin. Worthy and wanted and so very dear to me. Their lips met in a kiss that promised more than words could express commitment, passion, a future neither had dared imagine weeks ago. When they parted, his smile was tender despite the pain he clearly still felt. Rest now, she urged, wiping away her tears. We've miles to go before Wyoming. And after Wyoming, he asked, his eyes beginning to close as exhaustion claimed him. She brushed the hair from his forehead with gentle fingers. After Wyoming, we'll find our way together. The remaining weeks of the drive took on a dreamlike quality for Olivia. Zane recovered slowly but steadily under her careful ministrations, and though he couldn't ride for the first week, he directed operations from the chuck wagon with characteristic efficiency. The forced proximity only deepened their connection, allowing for conversations that ranged from childhood memories to hopes for the future. Tell me about your dream ranch, Olivia said one evening as they sat side by side watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Zane's arm rested comfortably around her shoulders, a liberty they now allowed themselves when away from the main camp. It's in northern Colorado, he said, his voice warming with enthusiasm. A valley nestled against the mountains, with a clear stream running through it. Good water, good grass, natural shelter for the stock in winter. You've seen this place? She asked, hearing the specificity in his description. He nodded. 3 years ago, on another drive. The land was part of a larger ranch then, but the owner was looking to sell off sections. I've been saving ever since. He hesitated, then added, I rode out there last fall. It's still available. Another season or two of trail boss wages, and I'll have enough. It sounds beautiful. It is. His fingers traced patterns on her shoulder. Plenty of room for a good-sized herd. Room for a home, too. A real one, not just a line shack. He looked down at her, his expression suddenly vulnerable. Room for a family. The word hung in the air between them, laden with meaning. Olivia's heart quickened. A family. His arm tightened around her. I know it's fast-lived, but when you know, you know. He turned to face her fully. I was lost before you, just drifting from season to season, drive to drive, with nothing but a far-off dream to keep me going. And now, she prompted when he paused. Now I have a reason to make that dream real. Someone to share it with. His calloused hand cupped her cheek. If you want that too. Did she? The question echoed in her mind as she searched his earnest face. Weeks ago, she'd been desperate and alone, unwanted by the very town that had seen her birth. Now this man, this good, honorable man, was offering her everything she'd ever dreamed of. Home, family, love. I do, she whispered, surprised at the certainty in her own voice. I want that very much. The kiss they shared sealed a promise neither took lightly. Later, as they walked hand in hand back to camp, Zane spoke of practical matters. We'll reach Cheyenne in 5 days, deliver the herd, and collect our pay. Then we can head to Denver, find a preacher, marriage. Olivia stopped, eyes wide. You mean to marry now? His brow furrowed. Of course, unless you'd prefer to wait. The question was genuine, his willingness to accommodate her wishes evident. But Olivia found herself shaking her head. No, she said, surprising herself again. I don't want to wait. But are you certain? Your men will stand witness and wish us well, he finished confidently. They respect you, Liv. After all you've done for the outfit, they'd ride through fire for you. His certainty warmed her, but practical concerns intruded. What of your employer? Mr. McIntosh might not approve of his trail boss taking a bride mid-contract. My contract ends with the delivery of this herd. Besides, he added with a wry smile, McIntosh's only concern is getting his cattle to market with minimal losses. We've lost just 8 head this driver record. He'll be too pleased to object. The remaining days to Cheyenne passed in a blur of activity and anticipation. The outfit pushed harder, eager to reach their destination. Olivia's cooking improved to the point where the men began requesting specific dishes, and her medical skills were called upon several more times for minor injuries. Word of their engagement spread through the camp, met with congratulations and good-natured teasing. Miguel's wife Elena, who had become a dear friend, helped Olivia plan a simple ceremony in Cheyenne. You will need a dress, Elena insisted. No woman should marry in trail clothes. I haven't the money for such luxuries, Olivia admitted. Her savings from the drive would be modest, and she hoped to contribute something to their ranch fund. Elena waved away the concern. My cousin works for a dressmaker in Cheyenne. She will help. True to her word, when they reached the bustling cattle town, Elena led Olivia to a small shop on a side street. There, her cousin Mariana helped fashion a simple but elegant blue dress that brought out the green of Olivia's eyes and complemented her auburn hair. Blue for fidelity, Mariana said as she made final adjustments. And for happiness. The day of their wedding dawned clear and bright. Zane had successfully delivered the herd, collected payment from McIntosh's agent, and secured the outfit's wages. Most of the cowboys would disperse after the ceremony, some heading home for the winter, others seeking work in town. A few, including Miguel and his family, had agreed to join Zane and Olivia on their journey to Colorado to help establish the new ranch. They married in the town's small church, Olivia trembling slightly as Zane slipped a simple gold band onto her finger. His face as he spoke his vows was solemn yet radiant, his eyes never leaving hers. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, the assembled cowboys erupted in cheers and whistles. The celebration afterward was boisterous but brief. By late afternoon, farewells had been said, and Zane led Olivia toward the hotel where they would spend their first night as husband and wife. They walked arm in arm through Cheyenne's busy streets, both slightly overwhelmed by the day's events. Happy, Mrs. Kincaid? Zane asked softly. The name still felt new, wonderful, and strange at once. Deliriously so, Mr. Kincaid. He chuckled, pulling her closer against his side. I still can't believe you're mine. Believe it, she said, her heart full to bursting. I've never been more certain of anything. As they turned a corner near the hotel, a familiar figure stepped into their path. Olivia froze, her happiness momentarily eclipsed by shock. Augustus Wilkes, Mrs. Wilkes's son and one of Whispering Creek's most prominent citizens, stood before them, his expression darkening as he recognized Olivia. Well, he drawled, taking in her wedding dress and Zane's formal attire. If it isn't Olivia Parker. Or should I say, the unwanted girl who ran off with the cattle drive. Zane's arm tightened protectively around her waist. Kincaid, he corrected coolly. Mrs. Zane Kincaid. Wilkes's gaze flicked dismissively to Zane, then back to Olivia. Mother will be disappointed. She had plans for you at McGregor's. Said you'd fetch a fine price, being so fresh. Bile rose in Olivia's throat at the implication, but Zane stepped forward before she could respond. I suggest you move along, sir, he said, his voice deceptively calm. And consider carefully how you speak of my wife. Something in his tone made Wilkes hesitate, reassessing the tall cowboy whose hand now hovered near his holster. After a tense moment, He shrugged elaborately. No offense meant, he said insincerely. Just surprised to see our town's unwanted daughter found herself a husband. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Though I suppose any port in a storm, eh? Olivia felt Zane's muscles tense, saw the dangerous glint in his eye, and knew she needed to defuse the situation. This was her battle, not his. Mr. Wilkes, she said clearly, stepping forward. I may have been unwanted in Whispering Creek, but I've found where I truly belong. She met his gaze steadily. My husband didn't rescue me from anything. He recognized what you and others were too blind to see, that I have value beyond my father's debts or my gender. Wilkes blinked, clearly unprepared for her composed response. Now, she continued, you're interrupting our wedding day. Please excuse us. Taking Zane's arm, she guided him around the sputtering Wilkes. They were nearly past when Zane paused, looking back over his shoulder. One more thing, he said conversationally. Your mother's plans would have constituted trafficking. That's a federal offense. Should I ever hear of her attempting such arrangements with any other young woman, I'll personally ensure a U.S. Marshal investigates. Without waiting for a response, they continued toward the hotel. Once inside their room, Zane pulled Olivia into his arms. I've never been prouder of anyone in my life, he murmured against her hair. I surprised myself, she admitted. A few months ago, I'd have crumbled before such cruelty. You're the strongest person I know, Liv. His hands framed her face. And that man was wrong. You're not just wanted, you're cherished. Adored. Essential. The sincerity in his voice washed away the last vestiges of Wilkes's poison. As Zane lowered his lips to hers, Olivia surrendered to the joy of being truly and completely loved for exactly who she was. The journey to Colorado took 2 weeks, their small caravan moving steadily through Wyoming territory and south into the Colorado high country. Miguel and Elena traveled with them, along with Lucas and 2 other cowboys from the drive who had accepted Zane's offer of employment at the new ranch. The autumn days were clear and crisp, the nights increasingly cold as they gained elevation. For Olivia, these weeks were a revelation. The intimacy of marriage, the joy of waking beside Zane each morning, the shared plans and dreams, all of it created a happiness she'd never dared imagine. Each day brought them closer to their new home, and her excitement grew alongside Zane's. When they finally crested the ridge overlooking the valley Zane had described, Olivia gasped. Below them stretched a verdant expanse cradled by rugged mountains, a silver ribbon of stream winding through its center. Stands of aspen, their leaves golden in the autumn sunlight, dotted the landscape among darker pines. In the distance, a small cabin stood near the tree line the previous owner's lined shack, Zane explained. What do you think? He asked, watching her face anxiously. Is it as I described? It's better, she breathed, taking in the vista. Oh, Zane, it's perfect. The land transaction was completed in the nearby town of Pine Ridge, where the banker seemed pleased to finally close the long-pending sale. With the deed secured, the group returned to the valley, their valley now, and set to work making it habitable before winter set in. The lined shack was sturdy but small. Zane and the men immediately began expanding it while Olivia and Elena established a functioning kitchen and household. There was no time for leisure. The Colorado winters could be brutal, and they needed adequate shelter, firewood, and food stores before the first heavy snow. Olivia threw herself into the work with determination. The trail drive had toughened her body and spirit, and life on the frontier demanded resilience. Each evening, exhausted but satisfied, she and Zane would sit by their fire, planning the next day's tasks and dreaming of future improvements. Next spring, we'll build a proper house, Zane promised, his arm around her as they watched flames dance in the small fireplace. 2 stories, with glass windows and a proper kitchen for you. She leaned against his shoulder contentedly. I'd like that. And a garden. My mother always had the finest vegetable garden in Whispering Creek. Whatever you want, he murmured, pressing a kiss to her temple. This is your home too, Liv. Your dreams matter as much as mine. By December, they had completed enough improvements to make the expanded cabin comfortable. Miguel and Elena had established their own small home nearby, while the cowboys bunked in a separate structure that would eventually serve as the ranch's bunkhouse. Zane had acquired a small herd of cattle and several promising horses to begin his breeding program. Their little settlement buzzed with purpose and optimism. When the first heavy snow blanketed the valley, it brought not isolation but a peaceful interlude. The work pace slowed as outdoor activities became limited. Olivia found joy in creating a true home within their modest walls, sewing curtains from fabric purchased in town, arranging their few possessions artfully, cooking hearty meals that filled the cabin with delicious aromas. On Christmas Eve, Zane surprised her with a small pine tree, which they decorated with strings of dried berries and small carved ornaments he'd whittled in secret. Beneath it lay a package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. "What's this?" Olivia asked, touching the package curiously. "Open it and see," Zane encouraged, his expression eager. Inside, she found a wooden box containing paints, brushes, and several small canvases. "Oh, Zane," she whispered, running her fingers reverently over the supplies. "You mentioned your love of painting," he explained. "I thought perhaps this winter, when the days are long and the work is less, you might want to capture our valley." Tears of gratitude filled her eyes. In Whispering Creek, her artistic inclinations had been dismissed as impractical frivolity. Here, with this man, they were recognized as essential to her spirit. "Thank you," she said, setting aside the gift to embrace him tightly. "It's perfect." His arms encircled her, strong and secure. "I have one more gift," he murmured against her hair. "But it won't arrive until summer." She pulled back to look at his face, puzzled. "What do you mean?" His hand gently covered her still flat stomach. "If my calculations are correct, our family will grow by one around July." Olivia's breath caught. "How did you know?" "I wasn't certain myself until last week." His smile was tender. "You've been tired, a bit pale in the mornings. And you've been unconsciously resting your hand here." He patted her stomach gently. "When you sit by the fire." Joy bubbled up within her. "Are you pleased?" "Pleased." He gathered her close again, his voice rough with emotion. "Liv, you've given me everything I ever wanted: a home, a future, and now a child. I'm beyond pleased. I'm blessed beyond measure." As they held each other by the light of their small Christmas tree, Olivia marveled at how far she had come from that desperate day in Whispering Creek. From unwanted and alone to cherished and essential, the journey had been arduous, filled with dangers and challenges, but had led her here, to this perfect moment. "I love you, Zane Kincaid," she whispered against his chest. "With all that I am." His answer was to lift her face to his and kiss her with a tenderness that spoke volumes. Outside, snow fell softly on their valley, blanketing their new world in pristine white, a clean slate on which their future would be written. The Colorado spring arrived with explosive beauty. Almost overnight, it seemed, the valley transformed from winter's monochrome palette to a riot of wildflowers and tender green growth. The stream, swollen with snowmelt, rushed exuberantly through the center of their land, and birdsong filled the warming air. For Olivia, now 5 months pregnant, the changing season brought renewed energy after the confinement of winter. Her body had changed dramatically. The slight swell of early pregnancy had given way to a definite roundness that made her previous clothing impossible to wear. Elena had helped her modify dresses to accommodate her expanding waistline, but as spring advanced, Olivia longed for new garments suited to her changing shape and the warming weather. "I need to go to town," she announced one morning as she and Zane shared breakfast. "For fabric, if nothing else. And we need more supplies for the garden." Zane glanced up from his coffee, his expression concerned. "The trail's muddy still from the melt. Are you sure it's wise in your condition?" She laid a hand on her rounded belly. "Our child and I are hardy, husband. Besides, I'm going stir-crazy seeing the same walls day after day." His expression softened. "Can't have that. We'll go tomorrow if the weather holds." He covered her hand with his own, his face alight with wonder as he felt the baby's movements beneath his palm. "Active little one today." "Always," Olivia laughed. "Especially when I'm trying to sleep." The trip to Pine Ridge the following day was indeed challenging, the wagon lurching through muddy patches on the crude road. But Olivia reveled in the freedom of movement, the fresh air, the chance to see something beyond their valley, beautiful as it was. Pine Ridge had grown since their last visit in early winter. New buildings were going up, and the streets bustled with activity. The town was becoming an important waypoint for travelers and a supply center for the increasing number of ranches and homesteads in the region. At the general store, they found not only the supplies they needed but also letters forwarded from Cheyenne correspondents from Zane's sister Charlotte and, surprisingly, from Lucas, who had returned to Texas for the winter but wrote of his intention to rejoin them in the summer. Most unexpected was a newspaper from Whispering Creek, dated 2 months earlier but containing startling news. Mrs. Wilkes and her son Augustus had been arrested for fraud and attempted trafficking, the paper reporting that evidence had come to light of their schemes to sell young women into prostitution under the guise of employment contracts. I wonder who exposed them, Olivia mused as they loaded their purchases into the wagon. Zane's expression was suspiciously innocent. Hard to say. Justice has a way of catching up eventually. She studied his face. Zane Kincaid, did you have something to do with this? He helped her up to the wagon seat before answering. I may have written to an old friend who works as a deputy U.S. Marshal in Denver. Just sharing concerns, mind you. Warmth bloomed in Olivia's chest. You amazing man. She squeezed his hand. Thank you. Not just for me, but for whoever else they might have harmed. His only response was to bring her hand to his lips before taking up the reins. Their shopping complete, they were preparing to head home when Olivia spotted a new establishment across the street, Mrs. Henderson's Bakery and Tea Room. Through the window, she could see dainty curtains and proper tables with cloths, a touch of civilization in the frontier town. Could we, she began, suddenly longing for a taste of refinement. Zane followed her gaze and immediately turned the wagon toward the hitching post outside the bakery. Of course, a treat for my wife and heir. Inside, the bakery smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread. A plump, pleasant-faced woman of about 50 greeted them warmly. Welcome. Please, sit wherever you'd like. We've fresh apple tarts today and the best coffee west of Denver. Olivia savored every moment of their impromptu tea, the delicate china cups, the flaky pastry, the chance to be served rather than serving others. As they enjoyed their refreshments, Mrs. Henderson chatted amiably about the town's growth and her own journey west from Boston 5 years earlier after her husband's death. Needed a fresh start, she explained, refilling their cups. My sons had their own families, no place for a widow underfoot. So I packed my recipes and came west. Brave, Olivia remarked, admiring the woman's initiative. Mrs. Henderson shrugged. Necessary. A woman alone has to make her own way. She eyed Olivia's pregnant form approvingly. You're fortunate to have found a good man. Too many women out here end up with the wrong sort. I am fortunate, Olivia agreed, exchanging a warm glance with Zane. Though I like to think he's equally lucky. Indeed I am, Zane confirmed, his eyes crinkling with affection. As they prepared to leave, Mrs. Henderson mentioned offhandedly. I'm looking for help, actually. Business is growing faster than these old hands can manage. I need someone who can bake and serve customers when I'm in the kitchen. Olivia paused, an unexpected idea taking shape. What sort of hours? Mornings mostly, 6 days a week. What? The older woman's eyes sharpened with interest. Do you know someone? Perhaps, Olivia said thoughtfully. After the baby comes and is a bit older. I might be interested myself. Zane looked surprised, but not disapproving. You? Mrs. Henderson assessed her with new eyes. Can you bake? My mother taught me everything she knew. I was known for my pastry back home. Olivia straightened her shoulders. And I'm a quick learner for anything I don't already know. The older woman nodded slowly. Well, the position will likely still be open when you're ready. Come see me then, if you're still interested. On the ride home, Zane was uncharacteristically quiet until they were halfway to the ranch. Did you mean that? He finally asked. About working in town? Olivia considered her answer carefully. I think I did. Not right away, of course. Our baby will need me fully for some time. She glanced at him. Would it bother you? Having a wife who works outside your home? He guided the wagon around a particularly muddy section before responding. It's our home, Liv. And you're not just my wife, you're your own person with your own dreams. His expression was thoughtful. I want you to be happy. If that means baking tarts for Pine Ridge while I manage the ranch, so be it. Relief and gratitude washed over her. It might not work out. The baby might need me longer, or the ride might be too difficult in winter. We'll figure it out together. He smiled at her. Besides, I've tasted your apple pie. Pine Ridge deserves such blessings. His easy acceptance, so different from the restrictive attitudes of Whispering Creek, reinforced what Olivia already knew in Zane Kincaid. She had found not just a husband, but a true partner. Summer arrived with intense heat and the return of Lucas and 2 other cowboys from the previous year's cattle drive. The expanded workforce allowed construction to begin on the larger house Zane had promised, its foundation taking shape near a stand of pines that would provide shade and shelter from winter winds. Olivia's pregnancy advanced, her body growing unwieldy as July approached. Elena, who had delivered 5 children of her own, became her constant companion and advisor. Miguel's wife had also discovered she was expecting again, though she was only 4 months along to Olivia's nearly 9. 2 babies on the ranch by Christmas, Elena said happily as they hung laundry one warm morning. Your little one will have a playmate. Olivia smiled, resting a hand on her protruding belly. I hope they'll be friends. Of course they will. Elena pegged a shirt to the line. Like their mothers. The simple statement touched Olivia deeply. Friendship had been scarce in her life before the cattle drive. Now, she had not only Elena but also the easy camaraderie of the ranch hands and the growing acquaintance of several women from neighboring properties. Where once she had been unwanted, she now belonged to a community that valued her. The baby arrived during a summer thunderstorm, 2 weeks earlier than expected. Zane had ridden to a neighboring ranch to help with a difficult calving when Olivia's pains began. Elena took charge, sending Lucas racing after Zane while she prepared for the birth. By the time Zane returned, soaked and frantic, Olivia had been in labor for 4 hours. The next 6 were a blur of pain, determination, and finally the miraculous sound of their daughter's first cry. She's perfect, Zane whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as he held their tiny daughter for the first time. Look what we made, Liv. Exhausted but elated, Olivia reached for her child. The infant had a dusting of dark hair like her father's, and, when she briefly opened them, eyes that promised to match Olivia's green ones. Charlotte, she murmured, remembering their discussions of family names. Charlotte Hope Kincaid. Zane's smile was radiant. My sister will be over the moon to have a namesake. And hope. For what she represents, Olivia explained softly. The hope that brought us together, that built this place, that guides our future. It's perfect. He leaned down to kiss her tenderly. She's perfect. You're perfect. Life with a newborn transformed their routines entirely. Charlotte, quickly nicknamed Charlie by the adoring ranch hands, became the center of their universe. The long nights of interrupted sleep, the constant demands of nursing and changing, the overwhelming responsibility of this tiny life, all of it was exhausting yet wonderful. Zane proved an enthusiastic and involved father, as comfortable rocking his daughter to sleep as he was breaking a wild horse. On more than one occasion, Olivia found him with Charlie cradled in one arm while he worked on ranch accounts or discussed cattle prices with Miguel. The men say I've gone soft, he admitted one evening as they sat together on the porch of their still incomplete new house, Charlie sleeping against his chest. But I don't give a damn. Language, Olivia scolded mildly, though she was smiling. And you haven't gone soft. You've grown. He considered this. Perhaps. Everything looks different now, through a father's eyes. The new house was completed just before the first snow, and moving day became a celebration. The entire ranch turned out to help transport furniture and belongings from the expanded line shack to the 2-story home with its proper kitchen, glass windows, and even a small nursery for Charlie. Olivia had painted a mural of the valley on the nursery wall during the final weeks of her pregnancy, wanting their child to know the beauty of her home even in her earliest days. That Christmas Eve, as they sat before the fireplace in their new home, with 5-month-old Charlie sleeping in her cradle nearby, Zane presented Olivia with a small package. Another Christmas, another gift, he said, his expression both tender and nervous. Inside the package, Olivia found a leather-bound book. Opening it, she discovered it was filled with blank pages except for an inscription on the first leaf, written in Zane's precise hand. For Olivia, who sees beauty where others see only wilderness, who creates home where there was only shelter, who brought love where there was only loneliness. May these pages hold your stories for our daughter and her children after her. Tears filled Olivia's eyes as she traced the words with her fingertip. A journal? More than that, Zane said, taking her hand. I thought, perhaps you might write our story. How we met, how we came here. The story of Charlie's birth. He looked suddenly uncertain. If you wanna, that is. Oh, Zane. Emotion made her voice husky. It's the most thoughtful gift. Our daughter should know where she comes from, how wanted she is, how loved. How wanted you are, he added softly. How essential you've been to everything good in my life. Olivia set the journal aside and moved into his arms. I was so lost before you found me. We found each other, he corrected, drawing her close. And we'll never be lost again. Outside, snow fell gently on the valley that had become their home. In the cradle, Charlie sighed in her sleep, secure in the knowledge, even in her infant consciousness, that she was surrounded by love. And in Olivia's heart, the last wounds of being unwanted finally healed completely, replaced by the certainty that she was exactly where she belonged, with the family that was hers by choice and by love. In the spring of Charlie's second year, Olivia began working 2 mornings a week at Mrs. Henderson's bakery in Pine Ridge. The arrangement suited everyone. Mrs. Henderson got skilled help during her busiest hours. Zane enjoyed special time with his daughter, and Olivia relished the opportunity to use her talents beyond their home. Her apple turnovers and cinnamon rolls quickly became town favorites, and before long, customers were asking specifically for Mrs. Kincaid's specialties. The Rocking K Ranch, as they had named their property, prospered under Zane's careful management. His breeding program produced horses known throughout the territory for their intelligence and stamina, while their cattle operation grew steadily each year. By the time Charlie turned 4, they had added 3 permanent hands to their workforce and expanded their holdings by purchasing adjacent land. Life wasn't without challenges. A harsh winter claimed several valuable horses. A drought the following summer threatened their hay crop until late rains finally came. And when Charlie was 5, Olivia suffered the heartbreak of a miscarriage that left her bedridden for weeks, physically and emotionally depleted. Throughout it all, Zane remained her steadfast partner, as committed to her happiness as to the success of their ranch. When she recovered from the miscarriage, it was his idea to build the small studio behind their house, where she could paint undisturbed when time allowed. You need a place that's yours alone, he said as they stood in the completed room with its north-facing window and built-in easel. A sanctuary. The gesture touched her deeply. You always know what I need before I do. His smile was tender as he tucked a strand of hair, now showing the first threads of silver among the auburn behind her ear. That's my job, Mrs. Kincaid. To see you clearly. When Charlie turned 6, a letter arrived from Whispering Creek that changed everything. Olivia's father's former business partner had died, and in his will, he had left Olivia a substantial sum money he claimed had rightfully been her father's from their joint ventures. The inheritance was enough to clear any remaining debt on the ranch and fund significant improvements they'd been planning for years. We should visit, Zane suggested after the initial shock had worn off. See if there's anything of your parents you might want to reclaim. Let Charlie see where her mother grew from a girl into the remarkable woman I met. The prospect of returning to Whispering Creek filled Olivia with mixed emotions. I don't know if I'm ready to face those memories. You're not the same woman who left, Zane reminded her gently. You're stronger now. And you won't be alone. In the end, they made the journey the following spring, taking the train to Denver and then riding the stage to the town Olivia had fled 9 years earlier. Charlie, now 7 and full of questions, was excited by the adventure. Zane was vigilant, watchful for any sign that the visit was causing Olivia distress. Whispering Creek had changed significantly. The silver mines had played out, leaving the town smaller but more stable, focused on ranching and farming rather than the boom and bust cycle of mining. Many buildings Olivia remembered were gone or repurposed. The general store where she'd been refused employment was now a hardware merchant. McGregor's saloon had burned down and been replaced by a respectable hotel. Most importantly, the people had changed. Many had moved on during the silver bust. Others had died or aged. Few recognized the confident, well-dressed woman who arrived with her handsome husband and precocious daughter as the desperate girl who had left with nothing but a trunk of possessions. Those who did remember her approached cautiously, aware of how she had been treated. Mrs. Thompson, the general store owner's wife who had once looked through Olivia as if she were invisible, now greeted her with effusive welcome. "Mrs. Kincaid, we've heard such wonderful things about your success in Colorado." She smiled brightly at Charlie. "And is this your daughter? What a beautiful child." Olivia accepted the greetings with grace, neither returning coldness for past slights nor pretending they hadn't occurred. It was a delicate balance, but one she managed with the dignity that had become her hallmark. They stayed 3 days, long enough to visit her parents' graves, collect a few mementos from storage, and complete the legal business regarding her inheritance. On their final evening, as they prepared to depart the next morning, an unexpected visitor came to their hotel room. Mr. Wilson, the town doctor who had cared for her father in his final illness. "I hoped to see you before you left," the elderly man said, accepting a seat by the window. "To apologize for not doing more when you needed help." Olivia was taken aback by his directness. "You did what you could, Dr. Wilson. You cared for my father until the end, but not for his daughter afterward." The old man's eyes were sad. "This town failed you, Mrs. Kincaid. Many of us knew what the Wilkses were planning, but we looked away. It was easier." The forthright acknowledgement of the town's collective failure moved Olivia deeply. "That's in the past now, Doctor. Perhaps, but some debts should be acknowledged, even if they can't be repaid." He looked toward Charlie, who was showing Zane a drawing she'd made of the mountains visible from their window. "You've built a beautiful life despite us, not because of us." "I had help," Olivia said softly, her gaze following the doctors to her husband and daughter. Sometimes the right person at the right moment changes everything. When they boarded the stage the next morning, Olivia felt a sense of closure she hadn't expected. Whispering Creek no longer held power over her, neither its rejection nor its belated recognition mattered compared to the life she had created with Zane. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly as the stage pulled away, his hand covering hers. She smiled, genuinely at peace. "More than all right. I'm grateful for everything that led me to you, even the hardest parts." She squeezed his hand. "Without them, I might never have found where I truly belong." The journey home to Colorado seemed to pass in the blink of an eye. When they crested the familiar ridge and saw their valley spread below, Olivia felt the same surge of joy she had experienced the first time Zane had shown her this view. This was home, not just the land and buildings, but the life they had built together. Charlie, dozing against Zane's shoulder, stirred as the wagon slowed. "Are we home, Papa?" "Yes, sweetheart. Look." He pointed toward the ranch, where smoke rose from the chimney of their house and horses grazed in the near pasture. Home. The word echoed in Olivia's heart. Home. Family. Love. All the things she had once feared were forever beyond her reach, now the foundation of her daily life. As the wagon rolled down toward the ranch, she slipped her hand into Zane's, their fingers intertwining in the familiar gesture that had come to symbolize their partnership. "I love you, Zane Kincaid," she said simply. "For seeing me when I was invisible, for wanting me when I was unwanted, for believing in me when I had lost faith in myself." His eyes, still as blue and clear as when they'd first met, crinkled at the corners as he smiled. "And I love you, Olivia Kincaid, for giving me the courage to reach for dreams I thought impossible, for creating a home beyond anything I imagined, for making every day an adventure I'm grateful to share." As they approached the ranch house, their hands remained linked, a living testament to a love that had begun with a desperate girl, a compassionate cowboy, and a journey that had transformed them both. Where once had been unwanted and alone, now stood beloved and essential. And in that transformation lay the greatest adventure of all, a life built on love, sustained by hope, and rich with the joy of being truly seen and deeply cherished. Charlie, now fully awake, bounced excitedly on the wagon seat between them. "Race you to the house," she challenged as soon as the wagon stopped, jumping down with childish exuberance. Zane helped Olivia down, his hands lingering at her waist. "Welcome home, Mrs. Kincaid," he murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It's good to be home, Mr. Kincaid," she replied, leaning into his embrace before they followed their daughter toward the house they had built together, both the physical structure and the life it contained. And as the sun set behind the mountains, casting long golden shadows across their valley, Olivia thought of the journey that had brought her here. From unwanted to cherished. From alone to surrounded by love. From lost to found. In the arms of a man who had seen in her what no one else had bothered to look for. It was, she reflected as she crossed the threshold of their home hand in hand with her husband, the most beautiful journey of all.